Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Money Date. My name is Anna, and I'm excited to be here with you today. Welcome to my house, transmitting live from my kitchen. Anyway, I hope you had a great week and are excited to chime in and see what I've got for you today. We're talking about transitions, okay? Transitions happen all the time in our life, and you know what? They all involve finances. So I want you to be prepared, whatever those transitions are. But today we're going to talk about transitions in your career or transitioning to starting a business. Hi, Alexi. Good to have you. Hey, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. So I'm talking about transitions, okay? Hi, Tracy. Good to have you here. Now, what I want you to think about first, and we're going to dive into the topic in a little bit more details. I want you to think about when you're making a transition, right? And I think the world that we live in today suggests that, hi Chad, good to have you here, suggests that you don't have to be in one place and you don't have to have a career for the rest of your life and never want to make a change, right? You can always do that, right? And there's lots of opportunity. But when it comes down to your finances, I think that has to be aligned with what you're trying to accomplish. So that's the kind of the basis of the topic for today's discussion. Now, before I get into the meat of my tips and suggestions, I want to remind you this is a money date. There's a reason for us having a money date, and actually I'm very excited because 2 weeks from now or next week, Money Date is going to be a year old. I've had 52 dates with you, and I hope you've been tuning in for that long. To just simply remind you about the basic things in life that we all struggle with. And I'm not perfect, and I needed a reminder for myself, so there you go. Maybe I was a little bit more concerned about doing money dates for myself, so I started this. But that's what this is about. So this is a time for me to remind you that you've got to stay on the top of the three very basic things, okay? There's just three things. We need to know what the expenses have been over the last week. Now, this also happens to be the beginning of the month. Hi, Carlin. Hi, Wanda. Good to have you ladies here. Thanks for tuning in. This also happens to be the beginning of the month, so you get to actually, or I get to do this. I don't know what your financial system looks like, but I get to sit down and actually look through all of my finances in a lot of details. But besides that, every week I remind you to take a look at your spending. What has it been? Every week I remind you to make sure you understand how much income you've made. Good to have you here, Carolyn. Thank you. I also remind you to stay on the top of your financial goals. I actually the reason for my delay a little bit today, I finished the call with a client, kind of going over his financial plan and how far he's come over the last year. And it's that kind of made me think about the whole transitions conversation for today. But it's like the plan that he built for himself a year ago looks very different today, right? Because of these uncertainties that we face. But when we have the foundation, Carlin, you can relate to this as well, and with the clients that you're working with when they're buying a house, we've got to have a strong foundation. It really comes down to that. So my foundation for you and my reminders for you every week are those three things: expenses, staying on the top of your goals, and making sure you actually know how much money you make. So consider that your reminder for today's money dates. Now, I also want you guys to think about pleasant moments in life, okay? There is good positive side to finances, all right? It's not all grim and expenses and income kind of conversations. It's really not. So the positive moments are the gratitude that I'm asking you to consider, right? At least once a week. If you got more mental space, that's totally awesome. So sharing your money wins as far as whatever it is that takes place in your life, whether it's connections with the people or it's the events or things that you do, because it does relate to your finances. So I couldn't, and this is like, it's been one of those weeks that it's kind of been quiet for me in terms of any sort of major activities or events. I have not been traveling. So I, even though I do write my daily gratitudes and remember what I am grateful for and what I consider, those moments, I think the only, and I was like, I couldn't think of anything. So, as I was starting this video, I'm like, I think the only positive moment that I can think and sort of kind of stands out, I almost never, and this is why I'm actually at home doing this video, I never really get to work from home. I have an office that I can walk to. I live in a really cute town, and it's awesome and it's walkable, and so I never stay at home. But lately, for the last 2 days, maybe it's just the timing of my appointments or whatever it is, right? So I have been working from home, and that's really my win, because I get to maybe shorten my commute, even though it's not long. It's just been a different kind of environment. So that's my money win for the week. If you're watching this live, please drop a note in the comments. I appreciate you sharing if you found this useful, and do let me know what your money wins are. I always want to cheer you on with those things, because sometimes we don't even realize what is taking place, because we're so busy, we're so into the lives that we're living, and I can certainly relate that. That's why I sort of said I'm gonna call out on these things for myself. So anyway, I'd love to hear what your money wins are. All right, now moving on to the topic of our conversation today. So transitions. Now, there's a kind of diverse group of you tuning in today. So some of you are business owners, some of you work for yourself, some of you work for the companies. So when you face a time where transition becomes something that you want to explore, I challenge you to think about a couple of these things. Now, it always comes down to, again, sort of the analogy I gave earlier with the house and the foundation. So I want to share four tips, three and a half, because the last one kind of ties in together, about what do you need to think, right, from the time you start transition or you're getting ready to transition. And your comments, hi Carlin, the comments are kind of coming in late, so I'm sorry if I'm not catching on to them as I talk. So Carlin shared her win. Oh, that's exciting. Striking accounting for the week is great. Yeah, yes, I know. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. So as you getting to that point, or you have a friend or family member, right, you want to be financially ready. So here's the tip number one. Now, I drill this to every week or almost every week, but we have to have a cushion, right? So when the transition comes, so let's say you're changing your career, right? And I see this a lot in my industry, because financial services, financial planning in particular, I'll speak for that because that's what I do, is a career that's attractive for a lot of folks. But what most of us, hi Walter, what most of us don't realize, hey Walter, I talked to Celeste today, I hope you're doing well. We'll catch up offline, okay? What most of us don't realize, that it takes time. So whether it's looking for another job, it's starting a whole new career, you may be taking a step back. And so what that means is that you've got to have a cushion. So that's tip number one. What does that mean in terms of having a cushion? I always advocate for having a healthy emergency fund. A healthy emergency fund goes from, it's a range, 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses, okay? Now, it's a range, and it really depends on what you do, right? For those of us who are business owners or self-employed, right, we've got to be on the larger side of things. Now, when you are in flux and there's a transition, whether it's changing jobs or starting a business, you need to think about having even more than 6 months worth of reserves, because you know how things are. It really gets shaky when things are in flux. So you want to be sure that you can cover your basic living expenses. So I would always challenge you to think about extending it to 12 months. Now, you might be thinking like, oh my God, Anna, this is like, what are you talking about, right? I really want to get out of this situation I'm in, whether it's a career change or start a new job or even start a business, right? And it's like, it's gonna take me another year or so to do it. I get it, but you have to understand what the consequences are of you not having those reserves could be. So it's like, it doesn't, are there other alternatives for you to have the safety net, right? That's what I'm looking for, to have that safety net and be, and have those reserves. Hi, Becky. Good to have you here. So, all right, so that's kind of the baseline. Now, step number 2 or tip number 2 would be, again, kind of what we talked about already on the money date. You need to get handle on your spending and your budget. I want to have a baseline covered because it kind of it will help you work your reserves backwards. So if you know what your expenses are on the monthly basis, figuring out what your emergency reserves need to be should be pretty easy. But I want you to think about not just the basic stuff, right? The groceries, the mortgage, the rent, all of that, electric bills, internet, things like that. But I want you to think about once in a while kind of things, because when you're making a transition, whether it's changing a job, starting a business, life keeps going for you, right? It doesn't stop. Yes, you start doing certain things, but you're gonna have to take time off at some point. It may be challenging because you're busy and you can't, that's what it is. But I need you to think about those one-offs kind of items, and sort of, if you have your budget, you need to have those things in the side. They need to be merged and combined together, because it's just gonna happen. If you have family, if you have kids, your responsibilities are probably even larger than that. So I challenge you to have a sort of a skinny budget, if I want to give it a name, and think about those one-off large kind of items that are actually going to come up. Now, I want to make sure that my music is not too loud here. All right. Now, so my suggestion number 3, what also keeps on happening is the life keeps on going, right? So even though you're making a transition, we need to think about long term. For a lot of us, it's the retirement piece, right? So these changes that you're making are hopefully to improve your living conditions, to give you more satisfaction out of what you do, but you have to think about what's going to be in 10, for some of you 10, 20, or 30 years from now. So that means, that you have to figure out that you're safe regardless. You may not be making the money right away, right? If you're starting a business, it takes a while to get that going. You still have to continue on saving. All right. So, it's if you have the baseline down and you know what your expenses are, you can allocate the savings there. Okay. Could it be just a small contribution to an IRA account because you don't have a retirement plan, or if you start a new job and you don't qualify for one? Yeah, it could. I want you to find those opportunities. I want you to have the long perspective in mind, even though you're going through a short-term transition. And my tip, kind of 3.5, would be consider, right, before you make all of these changes, consider what the upside will be. Sometimes, and I see this a lot with clients, even one of the clients today, it's like, he's kind of stuck in the position that he's in, and making a change for him right now will mean a big pay cut. And so he's going back and forth and saying, am I ready to do something like that? So when you're looking at the opportunities that exist in front of you, the upside is obviously there, right? Hopefully you're making those changes for that upside, but you need to understand that so if it's a job change, what does that compensation package look like? Because it's not just the salary that you make that's going to give you money to pay the bills. What about benefits package? How does that factor into what you're trying to accomplish? Because you have to find that balance, right, between making the money, living the life that you want, and achieving your goals. So in financial planning, and what I work with clients is bringing all of those pieces together and making sure that they are connected and make sense. So that's why we start with the foundation and we kind of build on the top of that. So those are the tips that I have for you guys today. If you are in a transition yourself, let me know. I'd love to see what kind of things you're doing. What could you do better? Hey, the other thing too, if there are mistakes that you've made and you think other people can learn from them, definitely do it. I had transitioned myself from being an employee in the company and becoming a business owner. So I didn't start the business from scratch. I bought the business from the guy who started our firm, Jim Ludwig. So I'm 4.5 years into my business ownership. It's been absolutely rewarding kind of path for me, but it's been challenging. It had all the whole package is there for sure. It's been challenging financially, it's been challenging emotionally, but it's been also rewarding and exciting. So I've been there. I certainly understand the perspective of the change. It's exciting and I wanted to do it. Did I know going in? No, I didn't know what kind of things were going to take place for me, because I kind of, I was there the whole time. I worked in the business. I did what I've been doing continue doing what I've been doing from day one. So share with me and let me know what you kind of thinking. I've got actually a cute quote for you to close on this, and so it's kind of this, because I want, my goal is empower you guys to live a happy life, whatever that means for you, right? Because money is a tool that helps you accomplish that. So, and I found, I don't know, I don't have an author for this quote, but it says, don't pick a job that has a nice vacation policy. Pick a career that does not need an escape room. So whatever that transition that you looking to do, think about that, right? The money piece should be the last thing that you are concerned about, even though it's like on the front line of everything we do. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you guys next week. Bye for now.